written in passive tense instead of active. I said tense, but you know what I mean. Hello dears, Natalie Locke here with episode 31 of Write the Story, where I give you a prompt and 10 words out of this book where you try to write the story in 1,000 words or less for a flash fiction. I try to stay around the 400 mark, but I'll be honest, this go around, I was at 515 words. How I normally do this is I outline 5-10 minutes and then I draft my story for 20 minutes. If this is your first time doing flash fiction, I recommend no time limit whatsoever, or also be okay with being interrupted, like I am multiple times when I'm trying to write because I have kids. If you're ready to start writing, here's the prompt. The love of each other's lives. The words to include are piano, fish, store, ceiling fan, behave, breathe, describe, irritating, enthusiastically, and righteous. With this story, I was really inspired by the line, the love of each other's lives. I kind of imagined an admiration for each other. But of course, with any story, what is the conflict that I'm going to include there? And it's going to be someone's admiration is a little delayed in the story. They don't get that till the end. So what I ended up doing was writing a story about a mother and a son where the mother is not admiring her son's inquisitiveness of watching the world. She's kind of focused on her own thing. But of course, he admires her and how she handles things. Hopefully I conveyed that in the story. But let me share with you the outline and what changed between the outline and the story. So I started with thinking for fish, what was I going to do? And I'm like, oh, the kid is fishing for like the perfect leaf. I was thinking they're walking in the city because I felt like that was the only way that I could incorporate a lot of the words here. They're walking in the city and they pass by a keyboard performer and the kid maybe calls the keyboard a piano. Honest mistake. And then the mother corrects him. So instead of using store by itself, I ended up making storefronts a word in my outline. And I was thinking each storefront was a different world to this kid. And he saw a ceiling fan where the blades kind of look like leaves, and it fascinated him. And then for behave, I definitely wanted the mother to tell her son to behave. And I was thinking for breathe, it was like the mom trying to calm herself down, like breathe, or she just took a breath, or she's telling herself to breathe. I did put in, and I'm glad I changed it. I changed a lot of things, by the way, between the outline and the story. But I put that the mom was getting irritated by her son. And then that's when she told herself to breathe. But I changed that. Finally, there's this point where the mom realizes kind of who her son is. So she asked her son to describe what he sees, what he's watching. And he enthusiastically, the other word, starts telling her everything that he sees and from his perspective. And then that's when it dawns on her where she hopes she is righteous enough to catch a glimpse of the world through his eyes. And that's how I did all the words in the outline. But of course I changed. So let me tell you how many words changed. So out of the 10 words that I wrote, 3 words ended up changing very noticeably. The first one is I did not have the kid fish for a perfect leaf. The second one is boy and his mother did not pass a street performer playing on a keyboard and the boy called it a piano. And then the last one is, and I'm really glad for this change, the last one is the mother didn't find her son irritating. I really glad I changed that. I don't know why it meant so much to me to change that, because I know as parents sometimes our kids annoy us, but at the same time I didn't want to write that. I wanted to write her being lost and seeing the world a certain way, and then she finally sees the world in his way and she's in awe of him. So that's what I ended up writing about. Hopefully that is conveyed. Let me read you my version of episode 31. Marshall, stay close to Mommy, Kelly called out to her son, who had gotten distracted by a storefront once again. Mom, the ceiling fan looks like it's made out of leaves, Marshall said as he ran to her side. Kelly nodded but spoke into the phone. No, we will not agree to those terms. Did they just submit them to fish for a freebie? This is so irritating. They're not even trying to negotiate. Marshall caught up to his mother. He looped his hand into hers, only to have her switch 10 seconds later. What hand was holding her phone? Marshall tried to keep pace without the tether, but his eyes wandered. Each storefront was a portal to a new world. One storefront had instruments in the windows and either a stereo or a live piano playing, luring passersby through its open door. Another storefront had animals in the windows whose sounds still came through the windows despite the door being closed. Watching the animals play with each other slowed and then halted Marshall's steps. Kelly looked over her shoulder. "Hold on, Katrina," she said into the phone. She knelt next to Marshall. "Sweetie, I really need you to behave today. We're on our way to the playground where you can go explore, but we have to get there first." Marshall nodded. He and his mom continued their walk to the playground. Kelly checked over her shoulder more often as she stayed on the phone. A butterfly seemed to follow the mother and son for a block, but Marshall only allowed himself to steal a glance. He kept the same rigor when two dogs playing resulted in their owner being wrapped by their leashes. He allowed a glimpse the length of 2 steps, but nothing more. His focus was on his mother, the person guiding him to his goal. Once they arrived at the playground, Kelly motioned for Marshall to play as she made her way to an empty bench. She paced as she wrapped up her phone call. She sunk to the bench after hanging up, allowing herself to finally breathe. She looked for Marshall, only to see him sitting on top of the jungle gym looking out over the playground while the other kids played chase, hide and seek, or other games, interacting together. Marshall saw his mother and waved. She waved back, but motioned for him to come to her. He ran over and sat down next to her on the bench. "Do you want to play?" Kelly asked. "No, just watch," Marshall said. Kelly's brow furrowed. "Can you tell me what you saw today?" Marshall began to enthusiastically describe the day's adventures, to include the butterfly follower, the tangled puppies, the luring piano, and even about the children who enjoyed being it. The more Kelly heard Marshall talk about the world from his eyes, the more Kelly sat in awe of her son. She didn't notice things as he did. She wanted to be righteous enough to have a blink of the world he saw. I really enjoyed this story. It was warm and heartfelt, and hopefully that was conveyed, and I just absolutely loved it. The part that I didn't like, the actual specific line, because I have one this time that I just felt needed to be written better, is because 1, it comes across wordy. Two, I'm listing a bunch of things and it was written passively instead of active. At least I'm assuming so. I'm not really smart on those 2 things, but I feel it was a struggle to read out loud, so I bet it would be a struggle for any reader to read, and therefore it's something that should be corrected from an author standpoint. She looked for Marshall, only to see him sitting on top of the jungle gym, looking out over the playground while other kids played chase, hide and seek, or other games interacting together. That line wasn't as strong as what I wanted to be. What I wanted to convey is that she notices her kids by himself, where all the other kids are playing together and doing things. And it worried her a little bit. But then luckily, once he comes to her, she goes, "Well, what do you see when you're watching?" Like, she noticed him watching a lot that day. "What did you see?" And then that's when she starts to understand his outlook at the world. The other part that I felt I needed to work on, and especially because it's really just one line, and that is the son's admiration for the mother, where I say his focus was on his mother, the person guiding him to his goal. And I feel that doesn't convey his admiration for it. It really doesn't. I mean, it's, hey, I want to go to the playground, she's taking me there, or it's not as strong as I want it to be. I wanted this like to convey that look of when a child looks at their parent and just thinks they're the smartest person in the world until they become an adult and realize that all adults are really just kind of going through the motions, hoping they don't screw anybody up too much that day. But I wanted to capture that admiration that kids have for their parents, that all, like, my parents know everything. My parents can have eyes on the back of their heads and they see when I'm grabbing a cookie and stuff. Like, so many things that kids just look up to parents for. And I missed the mark on that one. So I missed the mark on conveying what Marshall was doing on the top of the jungle gym, like, and what the mother was seeing. And I missed the mark on conveying Marshall's outlook to his mother. But I feel at the end, I did do well having the mother have admiration for her son. I mean, I said the line of she was in awe of her son, but I feel the last line is my favorite line. She wanted to be righteous enough to have a blink to the world he saw. Like, to be able, and maybe blink was a bad word, but I felt I used glimpse and glance a little too much in this story. So I was trying to think of a, maybe glimmer would be a good way to change this, to make it where she wanted to be righteous enough to have a glimmer to the world he saw. And it kind of makes me think of a meme or some saying or something that I saw on the internet, and it said, I want to be the person that my children think I am. And I thought that was so beautiful. And it conveyed the admiration that I was just talking about that I needed to work on. But I felt that this story was all about both the mother and son admiring each other and respecting each other, seeing each other as a person. And the mother more so towards the son, because that was the growth. But the son never wavering on his admiration for his mother, like completely willing to do whatever she needed him to do. And it's really touching. I mean, he limited his outlook on the world because she asked him to. And it's almost sad because I don't think the mother, even realized what she was asking of her son, that he was not even allowing himself longer than 2 steps worth of a glance. Like, I don't think she realized what she was asking of him. And I'm hoping through the talk of what he saw that day, that she realizes what telling him to hurry up or behave or stop wandering and stuff, what that does for him and what that limits his exposure to. I'm hoping she sees that. And I hope other parents give their children chances to take the time. I know a little personal story on this of sometimes I'm in a rush and I have to just throw my son into the car seat and go. But other times, when there is time to do it, and I try to make sure there's always time to do it, my son loves to crawl into the front seat and actually turn the car on himself. There might be some law out there that says you can't turn a vehicle on if you're under a certain age, but he's under my supervision and the vehicle's in park, and so is and the emergency brake is up. So I think we're okay, that aside, but I let him turn on the car. And then he very willingly goes and sits in his seat and helps me buckle him in. So sometimes, every once in a while, hopefully more times than not, you can let your kid explore the world. And I know I always say this phrase, enjoy your day, your week, your month, and your year, but that's because if you didn't enjoy the day, there's tomorrow. If you didn't enjoy this past week, there's next week. If this month was bad, next month can be better. And also, me personally, I don't like to limit myself to think the day is bad. I break the day up in quadrants of morning, afternoon, evening, and night. My morning was bad, but my afternoon can be better. There's always a next chapter, a next second, another minute. And I hope you have enough time in the day to be able to take in those moments, especially the good ones. Have a good day, a good week, a good month, and a good year.